There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm assuming you can all hear me because I did a little test just now to make sure everybody could hear me correctly. If at any point you can't hear me, just log out and log back in again, because I know sometimes people's sound does have a bit of a problem. Kath is joining us tonight. So for those that don't know me, I'm Rebecca Wakeford, and I'm the online tutor for groups 1 and 2 for this module, and Kath is the online tutor for groups 3 and 4. I'll be running the session, but Kath is here and will assist in answering any questions that she might need to assist with. But I'll be the front of the session for now. So welcome, all of you. So this is the national support session. I'm not sure if you've had a national support session yet for any of your other modules, but the national support sessions are basically run the week prior to submitting assignments or the week prior to submitting an exam, so we can just go through with you the paper and cover any issues that need to be covered. So some of you seem to have had support sessions, so you might understand what this is about. So this is for our first psychology assignment, assignment number 1, which you should all have access to. I've posted it up as well as under more resources for those who haven't. And if anybody has a problem accessing the assignment or doesn't have it or has a problem with any of the links in the assignment, please just let Kath or I know so that you can have it and get it completed in time. So this assignment is due on the 28th of April. Lucky for us, it was moved out a little bit to give us all some extra time to settle in. And the time scheduled, it needs to be submitted before 9 o'clock on the night of the 28th of April. If you submit an assignment late, if you submit it at 1 minute past 9, or even I think just on 9 o'clock itself, the assignment gets marked as a late assignment and we're not allowed to mark it. So please make sure your assignment is submitted before 9 o'clock. And remember, the internet traffic on VC Learn when submitting assignments can get a little bit heavy. So submit it well before 9 o'clock if you can. Okay, so if everybody is clear about that. So it can't be later than 9 o'clock. Otherwise, we are not allowed to mark it. It gets marked as late and we can't do anything about it. It's out of our hands. For your assignments, you'll need to just pop on a cover page where you need to put your name and your student number and the module and the group, so we know that we're marking the right students and that it's an assignment number 1 and the submission date. And you can put a table of contents on the cover page, or you could have a separate page for the table of contents. Jasmine, you submit it on your student portal. There's a portal for submitting assignments and it gets submitted through SafeAssign. But if you've got any problems with that and you can't see how to do it, just send me a message and we can put up a little step-by-step guide if you're not sure. But all the instructions are on your student portal on VC Learn. Okay. If for any reason you can't submit an assignment, if you've got a medical emergency or a problem, a real problem that you can't possibly submit an assignment, don't tell us. We can't assist you. You have to log a VC Assist ticket. Everything you do where there's a problem or a query, log a VC Assist ticket. If you're sick for any reason, VC Learn, sorry, Kath, I get too muddled up. If for any reason you can't submit, just make sure you log that ticket. If you need a doctor's note, log it with a copy of your doctor's note. And every time you log a VC Assist ticket, remember it gives you a number, a ticket number, and make sure you note that ticket number down. And if you have any issues when you're submitting your assignment, if there's any challenges, if it comes up with error messages, make sure you take a screenshot of any error messages and log a VC assist ticket. Kath and I can't help you at 9 o'clock on the 28th with submissions. It's out of our control. Our responsibility is to prepare you for the assignment and mark the assignments. Any issues with submissions, you must log them through the VC assist and you must get a ticket for that. And then it will be dealt with by the assessment center, and Kath and I will be notified by them. So any problems on that particular evening at 9 o'clock and there's you can't submit, make sure you get that VC assist ticket. We only start marking the assignments from the 29th. So some of you have submitted assignments already. We can't touch them. We have to wait until we get our memos from the assessment center, and we only start marking on the 29th. And the marks are released to you only once all the marks have been captured by the assessment center, and then they'll be released. So don't look for your marks. They'll be hidden from your view. You won't be able to see them until they are officially released by the assessment center. So is everybody clear about that? The first one might seem a bit daunting, but once you're past that, it will be easy peasy. Okay, so let's move on to the assignment itself, which you've got access to. This is your first assignment for this module, and it is 100 marks. So as an online student, that basically means that you should allocate yourself about 10 hours to complete this assignment. It's not something you can do an hour before or 2 hours before. There's some research that's required. So allocate yourself sufficient time over the next few days to make sure that you give yourself about 10 hours to get this assignment in and completed. And once the assignment is submitted, the front page of your assignment tells you that by submitting the assignment, you have acknowledged that you understand or have read all the policies around assessment strategies. And those policies are available on VC Learn for you if you're not sure about what they are. So submitting the assignment means that you are quite aware of those policies and any infringements, what might actually happen. So around your plagiarism rules, your intellectual integrity rules, it just means that you understand and accept those and you've read them. So if you haven't read them and you want to read them, you'll find them on the VC Learn portal for yourselves to look at. The instructions are on the front cover. Very, very clear. No material may be copied from original sources, even if referenced correctly, unless it is a direct quote with individual quotation marks. And you can't have more than 10% of your assignment as direct quotes. So every answer can't be a direct quote from somewhere. And if you copy something from an original source, whether it's a sentence, whether it's a statement, whether it's a position on something, it must be in inverted commas. That is a direct quote. No paraphrasing. Kath, do you want to explain that one?
The students, it's so difficult with paraphrasing. We allow you to paraphrase, but obviously when we say paraphrasing, you have to take the information that you've read in the textbook and you have to put it into your own words, but obviously you still have to reference the source that you're using. So if you are using the textbook or any other source, you have to, at the end of your paraphrasing paragraph, put the source at the end. So it's really, really important that even if you are using your own words, remember you're still using somebody else's information. So you have to still in-text reference throughout your paraphrasing. I hope that makes sense.
You use double inverted commas for direct quotes, Cindy. Okay, so save a copy of your assignment before submitting it. When you submit it, please submit it as a PDF document. So if you do it in Word, make sure you save it as a PDF and you submit it as a PDF. Make sure you save a copy of it before submitting it. Some things can happen, some things can go wrong. We never know with technology when we put things into the ether that they get to the right place. So please make sure you take a copy of it, and even when you submit it, screenshot that it's been received. Okay, just make sure you have that evidence trail that everything has been submitted in case there's any errors with it. Obviously your assignments must be typed. all work adequately referenced, each section on a new page. The assignment is an individual assignment. It's not a group assignment. Each one is responsible for their own work. You'll be penalized for not adhering to the word or page limits. And so
sorry, Rebecca,
just make sure, yeah.
I just wanted to hop in there. I know that they obviously, students do have WhatsApp groups, and I know with face-to-face students, sometimes they start writing messages to each other. I'm not saying you guys are going to do this about the assignment. Just be really careful, because if you start talking to each other on your WhatsApp groups, even if you're just asking for tips, it obviously leads towards that you're treating it as a group assignment, and you will be penalized. So be very careful. Don't ask your friends on WhatsApp groups for information or page numbers or things like that.
Okay, and font size is, it's 12, I think. Am I correct, Kath?
Yes, you are right. It's 12.
Yeah, it's 12. Okay, so use 12-point font, and all your referencing sources accurate, and make sure you reference all your sources accurately, and in-text referencing is done with a list and using the APA 7th referencing edition. So remember that APA, we've stressed it a lot. It's not Harvard, it's APA, specifically APA. All the guides you use must be APA. Gaia, I'm not sure if I'm saying your name correctly. You can submit your assignment multiple times, okay? But we have to mark the last one you submitted before the due date at the due time. So if you've already submitted your assignment and you want to go and make changes or do cover pages, you're welcome. You resubmit, and then it tells us that this is number 1, number 2, and we have to mark the very last one you submit. So anybody who's submitted already, you are more than welcome to submit again. Please do not take it as a given that we mark it. We have to mark the last one you submit. Some people might submit 6 times because they might go through it and realize something. So please just make sure that you've made any corrections you need to do, and you get the correct version in by the due date at the due time. Okay, line spacing is 1.5, correct. Right, so what I've done now is Ariel's fan. Sorry, I was just on load shedding, so sometimes my slides get a little bit slow when my internet goes slower. Come on. Let's go back to the previous slide. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, okay. Sorry, everybody. It's just when load shedding goes, the internet slows down. I might just change my internet connection here to my hotspot because of load shedding. Let me just go back to my file sharing.
Sorry, Rebecca, while you're busy, I'll answer the question that I see is posted by Praneel. I'm sure it's, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but each question is on a new page, not each section. So for example, question 1 would be on a new page, and then when you start question 2, you start on a new page. So you don't do 1.1 on a one page and 1.2 on a new page. No, question 1 is on a new page, and then question 2 is on its own separate page, if that makes sense.
Sorry, I'm just reconnecting here. Sorry. All right, there we go. All under control. Are you all still there? I hope so. Okay, can you all still hear me? Okay, so the second page of your assignment is really, it just gives you the technical aspect for referencing. Just read that very carefully. The first, it tells you basically what is required to make sure that your assignment is technically correct in terms of referencing. We have to deduct percentages if there are inconsistencies in referencing. We are required to do that. And the deduction can be up to 10% of your final mark if there are major errors with your referencing, and it's 5% if there are minor errors. So there's a very comprehensive table there that divides out what is considered minor errors and what is considered major errors. But the main thing to note is if we see plagiarism, if we find that any work has been copied directly from another source and not referenced, okay, it's uncited and it's copied word for word from other sources, we stop marking straight away and we have to report it as a plagiarism offense. So do not copy and paste from somewhere else and put it in and not cite it, and therefore it's considered as your own work. We do pick it up. It gets picked up in Safe Assign, and we have to report it. That's plagiarism, where you take word for word somebody else's work and you put it in as your own without any form of referencing. So I think you're all clear on what plagiarism is, and we do have plagiarism cases. It's surprising that we have a number of them each year, and it's very disappointing. So please do not put in other people's work without citing it correctly. Okay, other people's work is plagiarism if it's not cited. Your minor technical errors, okay, that's a 5% deduction from the overall percentage. And then you have to, for us to deduct that 5%, you need to have done 5 or more errors from that minor error column. Okay, so 1 error doesn't mean 5% deduction, 2 errors doesn't, 3 errors doesn't. But once we start to get to 5, then we start to have to make a deduction of 5%. 10% is the major errors. So if you do 5 or more errors listed in the major errors column, we have to deduct 10% from the final mark. Okay. Let me just check the questions here. Amy, ma'am, what do we do if it's a list? Can we just use the exact list and then just in text? If you use anything that's exact, you need to put it in inverted commas, but I'm not quite sure at what point you'd be listing something. But if it's taken from another source, even if it's a list and even if it's directly so and it's a quotation, it needs to be in inverted commas. Okay. Can we submit or check our assignment with Safe Assign? Yes, you can submit it and check it with Safe Assign, and it will give you the percentage. And you can go back and check and amend your assignment. Just note that when you check your Safe Assign, on a lot of Safe Assigns, it picks up the referencing list as incorrect. Okay, what it does, it says it's from somewhere else because a lot of people put in the same references. So check as to why it's giving you that error mark, and if it's just in the reference list, then it shouldn't be a problem. We start to look at them when the Safe Assign percentages are high. It really gives us cause to go in and have a look and see what the problem is. And sometimes we do find it's the reference list, and the Safe Assign is a very good tool. So if you feel that your percentage is too high, generally, Kath, maybe anything above 30% or so is to go in and really have a good look and to see what the errors are. It can never be free of picking up errors, because there are, when you paraphrase things, some students paraphrase things in the same way. It does pick up other students' papers. And so there can be numerous reasons why it's picked it up as an error. So just go and check your errors. I'll come to question 1.3, Bianca. We'll go through all the questions one by one. Okay, so the referencing rubric, and that's what it is. It's telling you these are the things that we look for. There's three areas. Okay, the first area is consistency, that you've used the same referencing format throughout. Okay, and there are minor inconsistencies and major inconsistencies. So major inconsistencies, if your referencing is in completely different styles throughout, between the in-text, the bibliography, there's different ways of doing things, it would be a major inconsistency. If it happens just once, and it might just be a small error, it's a minor inconsistency. So there's differences between minor and major inconsistencies with your referencing. Okay, I'm just going to try the next page and hope everything goes according to plan. Right, there we go. Technical correctness is the second level that we look at, and that's where the formatting is technically correct, that you followed the correct APA format throughout your assignment. that you position your reference list at the end of the document, that you've got references directly associated with the concepts and ideas that you're paraphrasing or quoting, that you've got quotation marks, page numbers, years, etc. They're all put in correctly. So it's an actual technical correctness of your referencing is what we check. So the first thing will be the consistency. The second thing is the technical correctness. And the third thing, and I've seen this in the ICE tasks that have been submitted so far, is there must be congruence between the in-text referencing and the bibliography. That means that if there's something in text, it must be in the reference list. And if there's something in the reference list, it's got to apply to something in text. Remember that this is not just providing a reference list of 50 different books that you've read to show us that you've read 50 different books. This is referencing to say this is what I've used in my assignment, in my paraphrasing, in my direct quotes to support certain statements or paragraphs or what I've written in my questions. So if you've got something in your reference list, it has to have a corresponding in-text reference. Okay, it's not a subject where you just reference what you've read. You only reference what you are using. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? It's come up throughout our ICE tasks that is an error, and I have given feedback to students. I'm sure Kath has too. So things must match. Okay, you can't have one without the other. Very straightforward. Okay, so there's your assignment instructions. We're only focusing on learning units 1 and 2. We are given marking rubrics, okay, and you are given the rubrics in as well so that you can check what you've submitted aligns to the rubric. And I've put those into this PowerPoint so you can just see how they work. And make sure you've referenced all your sources using APA, and there's a link to the referencing website that IIE Library has for you, and it's a very, very comprehensive referencing site that they give you with specific guidelines for APA. So everything is available to you to understand how to do APA. Okay, so there should be no confusion over that. All right, we can't go into the answers of the questions. Okay, we're just going to briefly go through the questions so everybody is on the same page as to what they are. Remember, you start each question on a new page. Question 1 would be on the first page, and question 1 its entirety is 40 marks. The first question provided a detailed definition of psychology, and it's worth 5 marks. So 5 marks is approximately a paragraph. Okay, that's how you should sort of gauge your 5-mark representation. It's sort of 4 or 5 lines would be considered. This says to you a detailed definition. So it's not a one-liner. It's asking for some insight onto the definition of psychology. 1.2 is in your own words, define the core components of psychology. So that means in your own words. It does not mean as a direct quote. Okay, so you can't say, according to Wheaton on page 4 or whatever it is, this is the definition of the mind. It must be in your own words. You could still use your reference if you're going to source it from Wheaton, but you need to put it in your own words. Okay, you cannot use direct quotes for any of those. Simple questions, very straightforward, not difficult. Question 1.3 is worth 20 marks because you choose any 2 of the theorists. You don't do all 4 of them, you use 2 of them. So you could choose Freud and Jung or Jung and Skinner, however, but you only need to choose 2 and you put them in a side-by-side comparison. So they ask you to choose a theorist, okay, detail how they contributed to the field of psychology, and then compare how they did different experiments or explain a different experiment for each one of them, either 1 or 2 experiments. It's worth 10 marks. So if you are looking at your table, which we'll move to the next page, which they give you an example, you could have Freud and Jung, and at the top could be where it's got marks, could be Freud, Durkheim could be Jung, and the first one would be what their contribution is, and then the second one would be what their experiments are. Okay, that is the table. The reference under the table in the paper itself is just really telling us where, for this assignment, they got the table from. It doesn't mean that you do your reference under the table. So this does not mean the reference goes under the table. Okay, so if you are using a table like this and you're writing text in your table and you're paraphrasing from somewhere about an experiment or citing an experiment, put the citation into the text in the table. Okay, don't put number 1 and a little number 1 reference underneath. Do a proper in-text citation in the text of your table. So it's a very simple table. It'll be 2 columns by 2 rows, and it's probably be each, in total it's worth 10 marks each. So if we look at Freud, for example, 5 marks would go for their contribution and 5 marks for their experiment, but it's marked as a whole. So underneath, I've put here how that referencing rubric works for this first question, question number 1. And these are the guidelines that we will follow. And this is what you need to look at when you're looking at your answer and seeing what mark you think you've got. So when it comes to the definition of psychology, basically, excellent means that we can give you 5 marks if you exceed the required standard. 3 to 4 marks means you meet the required standard. 2 marks means you're getting there but not quite, and 0 to 1 mark means it's insufficient. So that's how we gauge it when allocating those 5 marks. Bridget, which question was it for the APA referencing? You must still use question 1.2. You must still reference your sources with the APA 7th edition referencing. So that what it's saying to you is you can use your own words to answer those questions, but if you're going to paraphrase it from somewhere, then you must use the APA referencing. Just reference it. That's all it's saying is in that question, if you use references, you need to use the APA referencing format. Okay. Question number 1.2 is that you show confident understanding. In the table. The table, you put references in your table. Your table will be made up of blocks, and you'll be typing little paragraphs in your table. Okay, your table is not in bullet point form. It's got to be in full sentences. So it's exactly like you would write it on a normal page, but it's just in a table format so that you can have the 2 theorists next to each other, so in a way there's a comparison. It's not a summary table, it's actually a paragraph. You write a normal paragraph in your table block. Okay, your table might be a whole page in length by the time you finished it. You're limited to a block for your theorist and his contribution, and then you've got a block for your theorist and his experiments. But you can write as much as you want in that block. Okay, it's as simple as that. It's basically just putting a paragraph into a block. That's what you're going to do. It doesn't mean summarize it. It doesn't mean bullet point. Write what you would normally write, but all you're doing is putting that content in a table. Okay, the core components of psychology. There are 3 of those core components, so each one would be in the region of about 5 marks, and we would consider them together as a whole for 15 marks. Please do not use images, okay? We don't want to see any pictures or any images at all, unless your assignment specifically says to you, find a picture of. No pictures at all, okay? Just written. Minimum of 3 sources. Where are we going with 3 sources? I don't think it says a minimum of 3 sources anywhere, does it? Do you need a minimum of 3 reference sources? Sorry. No, you don't need a minimum of 3. It doesn't ask you to give you the number that you need. You can use as many or as few as you want. Oh, so many questions. Hold on. Look, the table itself is going to be out of 20, okay, the entire table. So that you've chosen 2 and you've correctly referenced your work, you've explained their contributions, and you've provided clear side-by-side examples. So if you look at that, it's asking you to do sort of 4 things out of 20. Correct. So basically each one of those blocks would in theory be worth 5 marks. Okay. It doesn't necessarily ask you for the dates. What it's asking you for is their contribution. That's the biggest point of understanding. Okay, we're asking how the theorist contributed to the field of psychology. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that you understand what their contribution is. We don't need a history of Freud. We're asking you to really identify what their specific contribution to the field of psychology is. So you don't need to worry about the dates and things like that necessarily for that. So remember to do it, check against the rubric. Do you feel you've met those criteria? Do you feel that you are exceeding what the standard could be? And if you feel that you're not, what more could you do to make sure that you meet the standard? 1 sentence wouldn't be enough. If it's 5 marks, it's not enough. Go and put in 1 or 2 more sentences. Show us that you're exceptional. Okay, that's what we're looking for, that you've been able to read something, interpret it, paraphrase it concisely, give us the necessary information in clear forms. Don't wander around to just add content. Make sure it's clear and concise. We must summarize how they contributed in our own words with in-text referencing to get the 5 marks for each block. It is asking you to use referencing. So yes, you are going to contribute in your own words, but if you've drawn say for example, you're not sure what experiment Freud did, you go and you research it, and then you say, according to such and such, Freud conducted the experiment of psychoanalysis with women in Vienna, and he concluded that. So yes, cite it, because that's where you would have got it from. Okay. If you're unsure, put in your reference. Okay. If you're unsure, put in your reference. Referencing is not wrong at any point. Okay. If you write a long paragraph that's about 10 lines long and you put Wheaton 2018 at the end of it, we're not sure what part of that enormous piece of work you are applying Wheaton to. So it makes us skeptical that you are just reading stuff and shoving the reference in at the end just to make sure you show us that you've referenced it. So if you can use it and say, according to somebody, or in Wheaton 2018, it was stated that, then try and integrate it into your text rather than just putting it at the end of every single paragraph. We do get exams and we do get assignments where the only reference is the textbook at the end of every single paragraph, and it doesn't show us that you are really being able to interpret the information correctly and in a focused way. Okay, question 2, you would start on a new page. There's a little case study example at the top there, which you read. And question 2.1 asks you 2 things. It says to you, and it's for 10 marks, it asks you to differentiate between the quantitative and the qualitative approach. So therefore it's saying to you, what is qualitative research and what is quantitative research, and then why would they be different? And then for the second part of it, it's explain which approach you would prefer to understand the effects of COVID-19 on the mental health. So there's sort of 2 parts to that question. It's saying, let us know that you know what quantitative research is and what qualitative research is, and why they might be different. And then which one would you prefer to use to examine this issue that is outlined in this little study. But whichever approach you give us, you need to give us a reason why you need to use that, you would use that approach. So quantitative research is this, qualitative research is that. In the case study given, I would use this approach because, okay, and substantiate it. I'm not giving you that. It says which one you would prefer to use and substantiate it. Okay, if you can substantiate it correctly, then it can't be wrong, but you need to be able to substantiate it. All right, it's very clear. So it's 10 marks. So it's probably about 2 paragraphs or so. First bit explaining the difference between the two, and then which one you would use and why. It's 10 marks for that question. Okay, so there's your rubric for answering that question. We need to see that you can understand the difference to the two approaches, and that you can explain which approach to use to understand the effects of COVID-19 on mental well-being, and that you've conducted additional research to support your argument. So there it's telling you that in that answer you need to have a reference somewhere, and you need to use that reference. Surname and date, yes, that is correct in your in-text reference. Your in-text reference is not www.simplypsychology.com. Your in-text reference would be the name of the author of that web page and the date of that web page. Okay, the referencing guide is very clear. I've got an example at the end which I can show you, but it should be surname and date. Okay. So there's your marking. That obviously we will give marks for that you can show the difference between qualitative, quantitative. We will be giving marks that you've given your approach, and we're giving marks as to why, and we will be giving marks to the fact that you've done the research on it, you've included a research or additional research and put in the correct referencing. I would say it's just one piece of additional research there. It's only a 10-mark question. It doesn't need copious amounts of research, but it's to show us that you have looked at the research to support your answer in your in answering this question. Is that clear? Kath, is that okay? Anything to add there?
No, perfect. I agree with you 100%. The only thing I wanted to add is just be very careful what sources you're using. I know people are going on about sources and using other sources. Just make sure that you're using peer-reviewed sources. Don't just be using Google or Wikipedia. Just make sure that your sources are proper academic sources. It's very, very important as well.
Okay. We'll touch on that just in the final conclusion as well to make sure. Wheaton is the book. Sorry, is it my pronunciation? I don't know if it's Wheaton or Wheaton. So I say Wheaton because I think that's how I say the name of the textbook. That's what I mean by that. Question 2.2, it gives you a link. You should be able to click on that link. It should work, and it should take you to a research paper that somebody has done. Should this question be done together in one paragraph? You can give each a separate paragraph. It's 10 marks, so just divide it up into 2 paragraphs, just as long as it looks clear and you can just differentiate out the different pieces of your answer. It's just a guideline. It's like 5, if it's 5 marks, it should be about a paragraph. If it's 10 marks, 2 paragraphs. You can break up your paragraphs into separate pieces to answer the question. Doesn't matter. Question 2.2, it gives you a link to an article. This question is for 40 marks, okay? You link through to the article. I would suggest you read the article from beginning to end. It's really good practice. You'll get the information you need if you read the article from beginning to end and understand what the article is talking about. Should we write 2.1, etc. for each answer? No, just 2.1 is fine, and then the paragraphs can go underneath that. It's all one 10-mark question. So this question is quite straightforward. It's giving you the steps there of the scientific process, and it says to you to apply the scientific investigation steps to the given research article. Should we label each question as we answer it? Label it. You just need the question number. Okay, so let's just finish this and then we'll come back to you, Bridget. So you click on the link, it takes you to a research article. Read the research article from start to finish. Make sure you understand exactly what they're researching, why, what they're using to do their research, and what the conclusions are. So before you even start to answer the question, it's not a difficult research article to read. And just read it from the beginning to the end to get the feel of it. Then you have these steps, the scientific investigation steps. Remember, read the article and respond briefly, 1 to 4 sentences maximum, to only the steps mentioned in the following table. It doesn't mean that you've got to answer in a table. So you can just say, step 1, identify the problem, and then you give 4 to 5 or 1 to 4 sentences maximum. So go with 4 sentences on answering, identify the problem. Okay, so the problem identified in the research article is, okay, and you'll write the answer there. So when you've read the research article, go back to now to your question, and firstly you'll say, what is the problem being studied? Okay, what is the problem being studied? Very simple. Why is the study important? Why is the study important is for 10 marks. What the problem being studied is for 5 marks. So the problem being studied is much shorter than why, okay? Understanding why the study is important is slightly longer. It needs you to really understand what they're doing the study for. Which research design or approach was used in the article? Again, it's in there. You read it, you find it, find out. And research design is not quantitative or qualitative. That's not your research design. Within quantitative or qualitative, there are different research designs that are used. So just saying qualitative is not your research design. Okay. What methods did they use for data collection is 5 marks. What analysis tool was used or software, 5 marks. And it says to you, only mention the tool you come across, do not need to go in depth. Okay, so again, it's very straightforward. And what conclusions? The conclusions is slightly longer, is a summary of the findings for 10 marks. I think personally the 10-mark questions should be slightly longer than 1 to 4 sentences. So if it's a 10-mark question, remember we said 10 marks is a bit more like 2 paragraphs. So to me, answering those 10-mark questions needs to be a little bit longer, because why the study is important is a little bit more detailed than which research tool is used. So 10 marks, make sure that you balance it out, that I would say 1 to 4 could be sufficient, but to get to that excellent mark, try and make sure that you've given us a nice sort of meaty paragraph to show your understanding. For each step, would they have to use the article as a reference? Kath, what is your feeling on that?
Yeah, it's quite a difficult one, because so I'm going to just say my face-to-face students have submitted already because they had the original date, and they did do that, and it's quite hectic to read where students are referencing for every single step. I feel like the longer ones where there's more marks, it's probably better for you to reference those. The shorter ones, if you're still using the textbook, it just varies, because then it starts looking like we were saying earlier, where every single thing has a referencing behind it. So I noticed that it can get quite hectic with referencing. So depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, I wouldn't use, because this is a bit like your question paper.
Yes.
The research article itself is like your question paper, so you don't reference your question paper in your answer. So to me, I wouldn't necessarily reference the research article in there. And in this case, it's not asking you to do additional research. So what it's asking you to do, it's a bit like an English comprehension, is to go into this research article and extract information from it. So,
yeah, so if you say according to or whatever, that's fine, but don't do it every single sentence, because then it becomes a bit, you know what I mean, like it becomes a bit mundane. We're reading the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, and what this is just telling us, is telling us that you can identify the different steps and apply them to this particular question. This research article actually is your question, so you wouldn't cite, you know, that in your answer. So I'm not going to be terribly specific about saying in this answer there needs to be in-text referencing, because it's asking you to go to the article and extract the relevant information. So I wouldn't stress too much about that part of it. Your answers for this, it doesn't need to be in a table. No, I would just make sure you've got the heading. So you'd say question 2.2, step 1, identify a problem, and under that heading, just write your answer. Step 2, state the rationale, write your answer. It doesn't need to be in a table format for us to respond to this. Do we reference in the article in our reference list? Do we reference the article in our reference list? No, you don't, because your article is your question paper. would be my suggestion to you. And if you put it in your reference list, it means you've got to cite it in your text. So to be honest with you, in this instance, can we address Rebecca's question at 6:33? Sorry, going up, 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 up. Rebecca, Cheryl Lee, 6:33. Just give me the question again. Who did? Oh, thanks, Kath. Sorry, Bridget's question at 16. Question. Okay, question 2.2. I have a question, and I hope it's not a stupid one. So with the article, it first gives you the abstract after the article. So now you identify the problem in the abstract. You will identify remember the abstract is like the summary. So you're never going to have a true comprehension unless you read the whole article. Okay, so the abstract is your summary of your article. So read the whole article and then go back and say, what is the problem? Okay, the problem doesn't necessarily come from the abstract. It can be expanded on in the article itself. So the abstract is just a summary. The reason abstracts are there is if you've got a bunch of research papers and you want to see which one you want to use, you can check the abstract and say, okay, this covers what I'm looking for. Let me go and read the article. Okay, the abstract is really like just your summary of the article itself. Read the article. Okay, everything will come from the article. All right, and the final question is really testing our strengths when it comes to APA. All right, it's giving you there a reference. It's saying to you, and that reference belongs to the article that you've just read. Okay, below is the APA 7th edition reference for the research article in question 2.2. However, there are errors in it, and it's looking for you to identify 10 errors, okay, in point form and briefly explain why they are errors. So you're going to have to look through that, pick up 10 errors in that reference as it's given to you, and list what those 10 errors are. I'm scrolling down to the bottom. The last question is the reason I didn't sleep for 2 days. Yeah, it's a very good question, actually. It's very clever because it does make you just go through it with a tooth comb. So it says to you, it actually, the support that is linked to help you complete this question successfully, cross-check with the detail in the article. So remember, the article is in front of you. You've got the names of the authors on the article. You can check everything there. Yeah, you could do just point form for this, or I would number your errors 1 to 10. Error number 1, error number 2, error number 3, down to number 10. Okay, that's what I would do because it tells you to at least find 10 errors. So bullet form or just numbering the errors as you go down. It's not sentences, it's just listing them. Okay, if you go and click on that link, it takes you to a website. I did numbers for the errors and I retyped it and highlighted the errors. Yeah, that's fine. Kath says that's fine. So this website link to this Purdue Online Writing Lab gives you a link to the APA 7th edition, and it's very, very clear. It gives you a great deal of help in exactly how things should be referenced. So you've got multiple authors, you know that it's a journal article. So when you're looking as to how to reference something, make sure that you're looking, it's not a website, so you don't look how to reference a website. Make sure you look how to reference the right thing. Yes. It says to us that you have to have a minimum of 10. So you're not going to get full marks from us unless you've got 10. Okay, if you've got less than 10, it's not going to give you full marks because that's what it's asking you to do, to give us a minimum of 10. Right, and the last thing I've done is I used, and I've seen it, and Kath, I think just pick up if I'm wrong here, but there we go, there's more than 10 errors. So Kath's already marking her face-to-face students. I haven't got those, so I still haven't seen the memo or gone through it completely yet. I have just made a note that when people are referencing the textbook, and I've seen it in the ICE tasks, you need to reference it. The textbook is written by Wheaton or Wheaton. Okay, Haslam is an editor. He's not an author. So when you go to that Purdue website, and it tells you exactly how to reference something where there's an author and an editor, which I put underneath. So you can see there quite clearly that the name of the author comes first, followed by a comma, an initial, and a full stop, and the year of publication. So what we're also seeing is when people put the title of the work, just please make sure you know where the capital letters and things go. But I have put there how I believe the textbook should be correctly referenced. Kath, are you in agreement with that? Because I am seeing a bit of confusion.
I was actually looking. That's a great slide. I actually want to steal that slide because that's really good.
I'll put this. I will share the slides.
Damn it! I should have given it to my face-to-face students because they really were battling with it. So you guys, you should totally take notes of that slide.
Okay, because I've seen it come through in different ways, and I did correct it. Then I did go and check, and this to me is the correct way because Hassam is the editor. He's not the author. Okay, the author of the book is Witten. So just make sure that you check it, and that's underneath is what's taken from the Purdue site. So it very nicely lays out how things should look, and so you can use it to compare for your answer for that last question. And just also to point out, the final thing is, I know a lot of you use websites as references. You use electronic sources. Please go and check on that website how to reference electronic sources. It's very, very clear. So do not just put the website address, www.simplypsychology. Every website has an author. Okay, the page should have an author. You should be able to find the author. If you can't find the author, you put the company name who's doing the website. But please, before you start doing your referencing, go and check your approach to referencing. So I've got a website. I want to use it. Let me go to my referencing guide and find out exactly how to do it. So WASM shouldn't be listed in the ref. WASM should be WASM. No, your reference there, what is written at the top of this page, Witten, okay, would be your reference. What would be in your in-text reference would be Witten 2018, not Witten and Hassam, because Hassam is not the author, Hassam is the editor. So what is in your in-text reference is the author. In your final reference is where you put the full name, where you see that Hassam is the editor. That to me is how you do it. Okay, so please, all I want to say is use that website to help you with your referencing. It's really, really good. It even gives you the function of, if you click on the link in that previous question, it will take you to the website. It's called Purdue OWL, or you could put Purdue OWL into your browser. Look at the bottom of that page. It's called Purdue Online Writing Lab. That's what the VC library is using to support your APA referencing. And you go there and you see APA referencing and you click on it and everything is there. If you've got a YouTube clip, it tells you how to reference a YouTube clip. If you've got a book or a journal, it tells you how to do it. So just put it into that, add any additional information, and it will give you a guideline to use. And just remember that when you're cruising through the internet and looking for things, just look at it and say, do I think this is an acceptable source for an academic paper? To me, things like Wikipedia at this level, it's not really, I wouldn't be using Wikipedia as an academic source. It's not peer reviewed. Anybody can contribute at any time to Wikipedia. Nobody verifies the content of Wikipedia. Therefore, you can't say that it's a credible academic source. I can go add something to Wikipedia if I want to, and I'm not a credible academic source myself. So please don't cite your collabs either. Those are not credible academic sources. Self-help magazines are not credible academic sources. On Simply Psychology, if you go to Simply Psychology and you look, you'll see that it is a very credible source. I don't mind Simply Psychology, but then you need to cite the author of that particular page, who's often McLeod. And you'll say McLeod 2018 in your text, and at the end, you will have your Simply Psychology source reference correctly according to how it tells you to do it. I also hate Simply Psychology. It comes through, Kath. I know we both see it, and we both prefer you to stay away from it. It's like a psychology for dummies, possibly. So
I hate it. And very well-minded. I can't. When I see very well-minded and Simply Psychology, I want to die.
Yeah, because we're looking that you are looking for academic work. And when you look at this journal article that you've got in this paper, and I actually like the way they've done this assignment, because it's showing you what an academic journal article looks like. Okay, and it's giving your first taste at looking at them. So it's a very good approach. These last two questions are very good. And overall, guys, this is not a difficult paper. It's really not. It's very straightforward. I think it's a very straightforward assignment. The marks are very easy. There's not long 40-mark essay questions, which we might get in the next assignment, which I actually haven't looked at yet. But it is a very straightforward assignment, and if you break it down into all the different mark components, you should actually do very well. If you've got any problems prior to submission, you're welcome to email us. We can't answer you about questions, but if you're not sure about something, please just drop us an email, and we can answer you. So does that make sense to everybody? Is everybody happy with that? Kath, do you want to add anything?
No, pretty much what you said is 100% correct. I was looking at, I've been marking face-to-face assignments, and you know, guys, it's very, very easy. It's not a difficult assignment. If you apply it and you actually give us enough, I say to students, you can't give us one line for 5 marks. How on earth do you expect us to give you 5 ticks in one sentence? So if you think about it, we have to tick. So how many ticks can we give you if you are giving us one sentence? So give us the right amount of information for the amount of ticks that you think that we would be able to give. So if you actually sit down and do the work, it's really, really easy. It's a great assignment. It helps you to learn how to do APA. The questions are not difficult at all if you sit down and work on them. So I really think that there's no reason for a student not to be able to do well in these assignments.
Yeah, I agree. It's a nice, easy 25%. And then when we mark it, we mark on a rubric, and then we give you feedback. So if we feel that you've made errors in a question, we give you feedback, and that feedback is available to you. So you're not marked blind and you don't get your feedback, is that we do give the feedback. So hopefully that will appease any nerves. If you guys have submitted, you're welcome to resubmit if this has changed how you think about anything. I did say to everyone, please don't submit till after the NSS. You guys have still got lots of time. You've got the weekend, you've got a public holiday, so you've got plenty of time to do this. And then we've got a long weekend to mark it. Hey, Kath.
The thing is so funny, students. Guys, referencing is pretty much as important as the actual questions in the assignments. I know you're all freaking out about referencing, but put it on the par. The content that you're giving is just as important as the referencing. So it's like the same thing for us. We find the information that we're reading just as important as the referencing that you give us. I know referencing is terrible, but it's pretty much as important as the information that you're writing down. So this is something you're just going to have to come to terms with for the next 3 years of your life.
Hopefully longer if you're lifelong learners and carry on down the line. But yeah, just to find out, and I'm sure, Simply Psychology is better to me than Very Well Mind. If you've used Simply Psychology, if the page that you've read is written and all of their authors are sort of at the end, and they are all credible sources, and I don't have a problem with it, but I don't see it as being your primary source, and I don't want to see it throughout the paper, so that every answer I just go to Simply Psychology. It's like I may as well just use my textbook. We want to see that you are able to research, to find different sources. So, at the end of the day, marking is in a little way in psychology is also a little bit subjective, that we want looking for skills that we're developing in you. So, Simply Psychology is fine here and there if necessary. Make sure you reference it correctly. But when you get a paper and every reference is Simply Psychology, and when we go, no, it's not showing us that you're getting the skills, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for skills, research academic skills that you guys will learn. Because when you go to second year, third year honors, you cannot be using Simply Psychology. So we sort of need to get over that somewhat. You can use Simply Psychology to say, I don't understand it. It's not quite clear in my textbook. Simply Psychology psychology might help me personally understand it, but when I actually come to use it and I'm looking to support it from an academic perspective, try and find a different source, would be my suggestion.
And that's 100% correct, because in third year, because I lecture third year and face-to-face, they're not allowed, students are not allowed to use Simply Psychology and Very Well Minded. So that's why we try to sort of steer you away from that. Obviously, like Rebecca's saying, 100%. You can use it in first year. We totally understand. We don't want to see it all the time. But from third year, they actually in the assignment say, please do not use Simply Psychology and Very Well Minded. So I'm just trying to gear you towards this. As evil as it sounds, this is all we're trying to do.
I think it even said that in our final take-home exams last year, do not use Simply Psychology.
No,
so guys, just steer away from it. I sometimes go to it myself if I'm not clear about a point or a concept or a theory. I sometimes go to it. I mean, it can be a go-to for me, but often you find in Simply Psychology, it'll talk about Pavlov, and it'll give his experiment, and it'll give you a link. And what you should be doing is following that source to the primary source. That's what you should be doing as well. Is trying to find the actual source of that academic information.
100%, Rebecca. That's what you should do, guys, is you should hunt the source down to where they've actually got the source from. So when Simply Psychology gives you a link, follow that link like a little tracking dog and go to the original source, and then maybe use that rather.
Okay, Bridget's got her hand up. Do you want to ask a question, Bridget?
Hi, Rebecca. Yes, so I just have a question. I know it's totally, it might be off. So I just wanted obviously see how lenient you are when it comes to marking. So I'll take question 1.2 as an example. So Tabo doesn't read his textbooks or whatever, and he does his assignment the day before, and obviously it says in your own words, define the core components of psychology below. Then I will use mental processes, right? Tabo writes whatever comes to mind, but in a sense, Tabo has a bit of knowledge of what mental processes is, and he's just trying to get his point across, but it's just not coming through. Would you guys consider giving marks? Like, at least I've tried, but you're not, can I get half a mark at least for mentioning something about core components or,
Yeah, certainly. I mean, again, a lot of what we know, if we read sufficiently or understand, and we've got an understanding, you're welcome to put in what you understand by that. Okay. So if there's an attempt at answering the question, if there are, what is a mental process, will be given guidelines. Has the student mentioned A, B, and C? And if they've mentioned A, B, and C, then we mark it. Definitely, if an attempt is made at the question, it will be marked. Okay, that's the main thing. We are lenient. We look for understanding. Are you okay with that, Kath?
I'm 100% okay with that. Look, you're not going to get full marks, but you probably will get something.
You'll get something, yeah.
Yeah. No, we sound like really strict, and we want all, but this is obviously how tertiary education is, and we're just trying to prepare you for what, from an honest point of view, you have to reference all the time. So we're just trying to get you ready for that. But obviously, we are more lenient now.
Okay, does that make sense? Does that help? We're not. This is an easy one. Just guys, don't stress about it. I'm sure you're all going to do fine. If there's any errors or anything, we'll give feedback to everybody. Kath and I will chat just to make sure we're on the same page, so that all of you from both groups get the same feedback and we're all approaching everything the same way. No, you won't fail because of bad referencing. If you've got terribly, terribly bad, inconsistent referencing, we might less 10%. But I think also is that there could be a I'm not quite sure if there's a resubmission attempt after that. So whatever it does, everything is about scaffolding learning. And if this is only 25% of your final mark, so you know what, everything that you don't do well, you've got the next opportunity to pick this up. You'll all be fine. Anyway, it's Friday evening, guys. Go out, enjoy your Friday evening. Enjoy your weekend. Don't stress too much. We're available if you need help. I thought this would be quite quick, but it took a lot longer than I thought. But I will pop the recording up. and
It's the
have a good
referencing.
evening.
It scares the daylights out of people. Everybody is very scared of referencing.
Sorry, if this was answered, the cover page in the APA document, what does that mean? Sorry, Chantal, I'm not sure what that question means. Sorry, if this was answered, the cover page in the APA document, should we use that? Still not sure what that means. Kath, do you know what that means?
No idea.
No. Sorry, Chantal, I don't understand the question, but if you want to just pop an email with a bit more detail on, then we can answer it. Okay, hopefully the sun will shine this weekend. I don't know if it will where we are, but there we go. Okay, guys. Thanks, Kath. Thanks for your help.
Thanks, guys. Have a lovely evening. Enjoy your Friday all.
Have a lovely weekend, everyone.